And so the story goes. I'm in this Volkswagen camper, and yes, sure enough, we arrive at Lake Louise, and this young couple, we're coming around the mountain, and then Lake Louise is in front of us, and this wonderful lake, turquoise, an amazing, beautiful thing, and this couple was saying, "Isn't it beautiful?" And my first reaction was, "It's beautiful, but why have they plonked a massive grey hotel right in front of it, right on the water? It sort of spoils it." And we just sort of, we never thought of that. Well, I mean, I'm looking at a sort of concrete block here, obstructing a beautiful lake, like. But I mean, it was turquoise. The water was turquoise, like. So thank you very much. I think I kept in their camper van that night, and they were in somewhere. And I said thank you the next morning. I think she gave us a $20, like, the young lass. And I don't know how poor I was at that point, but it was getting pretty poor. You sort of know when when you're struggling with money, like when you months earlier, sort of walking along the road there with Steve, and I see a training shoe, and I'm looking at it as we're walking along with the rucksacks, before we get another hitch, and I'm looking at this shoe and I'm thinking, that isn't bad, that shoe, like, that's sort of better than the shoe that I've got on me, that I'm wearing, better than the shoes. And I was tempted to pick it up because in case the other one was maybe a mile up the road, and I've got myself not a bad pair of shoes. That's when you're running out of money, like. So I'm on my own, left Lake Louise, and I'm hitching forwards. Where I'm going, I don't even know. I can't even remember where I'm going. I don't know. I think I'm just going somewhere, And the town I came into was Banff. Now, I recognised the name Banff because I thought, there's a town in Scotland called Banff, which is the one in Scotland. Obviously, I've been through there a lot now. It's just a tiny little place, Whereas this Banff in Canada, which was named after the original Banff, probably settled by Scottish, and it's a big place, not massive, but it's a town. It's a sort of smallish sort of town. It's pretty lovely, surrounded by all the mountains and all the forests and all the rivers, which are turquoise, and a deep blue, beautiful, unbelievable, the colour of the water, like. And so I arrived there, and it's getting late, and I think I've maybe noticed a wigwam set up on a piece of sort of grass. There's something on tomorrow. There's something on. So I thought, well, I'll come back into town for that. So I've started walking, following this river. Not a big river, just a sort of stream, sort of large stream river type of thing. And I'm walking out of town, and to basically, if I can get a mile out of town, I'm in get in the forest a little bit, get the tent up, have a nice kip, and then get into the Banff the next morning for the McDonald's for my breakfast. So I'm getting down there. It's getting dark, and I'm out of town about a mile. I'm near the river. The river's not too far from where I set up the tent, and I set the tent up, and I'm in the tent, right? So that night, it must have been about 1 o'clock at night. It's dark. It's a little bit. Actually, it wasn't windy or nothing. It was quite still. And I've awoke suddenly to this very deep grunting outside the tent. The sort of sound that would instantly make you think, fucking hell, that's a grizzly bear. That's a fucking big one. That bear is about the size of this tent. Listening to the sort of clumping of you can hear the weight and the sniffing and the grunting, the lowness of the growl and the deepness. I'm thinking, fucking hell. So I'm sat up. I probably picked up something holding in my hand. And I'm just still as fuck, absolutely shitting myself. You know, is this it? And I realised I had a plastic bag on us. And in the plastic bag, unfortunately, was some sandwiches and some crisps, because I'd always carry a little bit of a snacks around with us when I'm in my rucksack. And I'm thinking, shit, because I was told that you never keep food in your tent. You always tie it to a tree, like about 500 yards away from your tent, because if the bears will sniff that out and not you out. And this bear, this thing, this entity is outside my tent, and I've got the food in the tent, and I'm just thinking, I'm just terrified, basically. Eventually, I think maybe after about 10 minutes, the longest 10 minutes of my life, it sort of faded away. And I was probably awake for an hour. And I've obviously been so exhausted, I managed just to, I think maybe the sun was coming up. I was getting a little bit slightly, I felt it getting a little bit slightly brighter outside. You know, the tone of the tent was getting a little bit lighter from the inside. So I've just nodded off, got myself in like a couple of hours. Peeked my head out the next morning, can see the river, knee bears, you know, right, pack up quick as fuck. So I pack up and I'm just walking back up to the river, and I'm just thinking, well, you know, I am thinking about it, like, but, you know, there's other things to be concerned about as well, like, because I've got a whole day ahead of us, you know. And what the routine I would go into would be, you know, you find that this is quite common. You find the McDonald's, because if you get in the McDonald's on a morning in the bathrooms, it's clean. The cleaners have been in, the toilets are clean, the wash baits, everything's clean. So you get in there first, and you can get a wash and a clean without it being, well, you know, I mean, public toilets, I mean, fucking hell, you know. So, but you'll get in, it's like it's like a hotel room clean. So that's what you do. And then I would go and get me breakfast, which would normally be just a burger, you know. Actually, what I was doing then, was that then? Maybe that was later. I used to pull the meat out because I was vegetarian for a while. I don't think I was at that point now. So I'd be getting me burger and me coffee and go and sit down. So as I've gotten that, you know, there's a rack of newspapers, local newspapers of the town, which, you know, you get that in some McDonald's. So I just grab any paper really, and I sit down, coffee, hamburger, plonk the paper down, and right on the front page, bear hunt. And then the article goes into saying how the lady who was mauled to death by a grizzly bear last week is now being hunted down by a group of locals, you know, to kill it, right? And I was just like, fucking hell, you know, this is real, isn't it? So, that was a bit of a shocker, like, because that's what they're doing, you know. If the bear gets the sort of taste, or it's lost its fear of the human, and it's killed, and it's sort of eaten some of a person, then it's properly, well, I mean, the wild animals anyway, but you know, that's they have to be shot, they have to be killed. Probably still goes on today, and they have to kill them. It's like if there's a shark attack, you know, unfortunately they'll go and just wipe out you know, just loads of sharks, you know, just to be sure, you know. And that probably happens with the poor bears as well, you know. There's probably a lot more get killed. they might even miss the bear that actually done it, but they sort of follow sense and that, so they're quite territorial, the bears, so they're probably more than likely to get the right one. And that day, after I finished me burger and me cup of coffee, I've walked into the town where this sort of wigwam thing was, and there's basically a festival on, and there's little bits Native American sort of thing, so there's little bits of things going on, and it's getting around about 12 o'clock, 11 or 12 o'clock, and I went into this wigwam, and there's a guy in there who, he's called Herb, and he's a Native American guy, and he's talking to people about the Native American stuff. He's also got wood carvings as well, and because that's what the Native Americans do, they do the wood carving, they do the art, it's the history, and they keep it going, and then there's the textiles and stuff. So I just got talking to Herb, and he was, he's a big fella. He had long hair, but these guys, they've got the long hair not because it's heavy metal, because it's Native American, and he's a strong looking fella, but without being bulky, he could definitely handle himself. That's what you would think, you wouldn't mess with him. And I've shown him my wood carvings, the little things I've done, and he says, I just tell him what I'm doing, traveling around, and I'm on my own at the moment, and I'm just I'm doing this for a little while, and I'm looking for some work, I think he says, I say, I've got my mandolin there. He says, oh, you play the mandolin? So I think I've played a few tunes. So that means, Herb's basically, unbeknownst to me, Herb's thinking, I like this guy. He's kind of a white man, native, with his music and his wood carvings. So maybe it's just been people enjoying what I've been doing on the mandolin. I can remember I wasn't sat there playing it all day. But then Herb said, you can come back to my place in Calgary. I'm married and I've got a couple of kids, but you can stay in the basement, and I can sort you out with some work, help you out. Now, obviously because of Herb doing what he was doing with the wigwam, and he's obviously like sort of, he's not just some bloke saying, do you want to come back to my place? So I felt I could trust this guy, he's out in the open, he's out in the public, he's doing stuff. So it actually, what it really was Herb. He was wanting, this is basically what it was. He was wanting somebody in his house charging rent money to. So he would get me back to Calgary, get me in a job with some people he knows, and then I'm getting rent money coming. In fact, to tell you the truth, I think he might have said that to us. I think he said that. He says, because, me and the wife needs, it's a little bit more of an income for me and the wife, And fair enough, So I'll go and do that, and I'll go and get a job at this place called Calgary, which I'd never been to before, and I'll get some more money up, and then I'll have enough money to travel around a bit more, get me plane ticket, and day issued. So we're in his car, we're driving along, and I'm looking out the window at the scenery. I'm saying, how beautiful it is, all these trees, and it's just all trees, isn't it, everywhere? He says, yeah, but this is like government land, this is what was stolen from us, and I'm not really saying much of it. I says, it's terrible, that, it's beautiful, he says, and then we're a little bit further along, and then he says, he pointed out of the vehicle as we're driving along, he says, have you seen this? And he says very proudly, he says, this is Indian land. And I looked, and there's no trees. Other trees had been cut down, just like barren land and hills and mountains, and with some I remember just seeing some scrawny looking cattle. And oh fucking hell, I prefer the forests and that myself. Like, so we gets to Herb's place, and by now I'm thinking, well, this obviously it's not going to be like Calgary's not going to have a set of wigwams, with it's not going to be 1860, and surely enough, it was a council estate in Calgary, just like a council estate of houses. And I goes in, introduced to his wife. She's been very quiet. I mean, she was attractive. I mean, because the two of them were, I mean, I'm sort of 28 there. I think the two of them would have been in their late 30s, early 40s. And she's attractive. I mean, she's Native American. She's got the long hair a bit as well. And, she sort of, friendly, but, sort of not saying much. And then he introduces his daughters. Now, his daughters were lovely, beautiful. I mean, one's sort of 15 and the other's sort of 17, right? And obviously, right, so I'm in this house, right, I'm in the Native American house, and I'm not, I'm traveling with a broken heart, man, I'm just out for the adventure, and but of course his wife and that didn't all that, like, so, and he shows us the basement. He says, right, you'll be sleeping down here, Rob. So we go down these sort of wooden steps, and it's just the big basements, like, but that's the States, isn't it? It's sort of a council house is a lot bigger than a council house in the UK. And so are the basements, and so is the front and the back gardens. Everything's just that bigger. So down in the basement, and straight away I noticed he's got like skulls hanging up all around, because that's the Native Indian tradition as well. So you'd have the, the sort of rams, whatever sort of cattle skulls, and then the horns, and then they'd be adorned with sort of stuff like the jewelry type of stuff, painted a little bit. Those were just things. So obviously things he'd made, and he was making stuff like the wood carvings and selling them. I mean, I said upstairs, I says, we haven't got many of your wood carvings sitting about. He says, well, I make and I sell them, He says there's a couple of bits sitting about, but they're just ones that I didn't sell. And that was the case downstairs, but, it was a bit, there's boxes and stuff around. It wasn't untidy, but it was a basement with stuff. So, a bit of rug was put out, and a bit of sort of, I don't know maybe there was a bit of sort of sponginess to, a bit of a, camping bed or something. I remember I was on the floor, like, cushions sort of thing. And sort of that was it. And I'm lying there, and he's walking up the stairs, and, hey, Rob, I'll see you in the morning. Cheers, Herb. And then ping, the light guns out. And I'm lying in somebody's basement in me sleeping bag with these fucking skulls all around us. Not being bothered, like, because I trust him. I met his wife, his kids. He's in the community. And it's all fair dues, And the next morning, obviously you wake up in somebody's basement, right? So I go up, and what would have happened the next day? We're getting, well, I'm over, I'm there for about a week really until there's a job sorted. He shows us his sanding tools. He says, forget about using a scalpel. He says, you want to use bigger bits of wood. So he got these bigger bits of wood out for us. he says, and you want to use these. So he's got the drills. He's got drills, like Dremel drills. So I started doing I done a really, really good hand. Like, I think I give it to him. I think he probably sold it and probably said he done it, And he might have got a couple of $100 for that. Like, it was really good. And I just done it the first time using the drill, and because I saw a hand in it, you see. And Herb was saying the same. It says we look at the wood and we see the image in the wood, the animal. We see the animal in the wood, and I says, fucking hell, that's exactly that's how I started doing it. So he was going off and doing something. He was doing a job. So I was in the house on my own. The wife was away doing something, and the kids were at school, college, whatever. And I'm just sort of sitting in this house, nice and warm, cups of coffee. I remember what they were always eating as well, like, was because you'd think they'd be like sort of eating healthily. You'd think, Native American Indians, you'd think, but what he was living on, and the wife, and the kids, was peanut butter sandwiches. This massive tub, massive jar, like massive sweet jar sized thing, just a peanut butter. Spoon would go out, and a couple of slices of bread. Here you go, Rob. Oh, thanks very much. And that's what they were living on, Oh, it's quite bizarre. I mean, literally having that all the time. And I never got a taste for it. I mean, I've had it since, obviously I had it since, but I mean, it's very gooey on the mouth, like the old peanut butter. So, doing the wood carvings, living on peanut butter sandwiches. And he says, right, Rob, he says, I've got, he says, what I do, he says, I must have been talking to him as well at some point about, or he was talking to me about it, he says he's a recovering alcoholic. He doesn't drink. Right? Now what's happened is he's been a hard case, like. And and again, this is another reason why he's sort of, he's warm to us, because, he maybe saw stuff in me that he was, as he'd been talking to us and that. He says, I work at the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous in Calgary. He says, basically he's the top guy at that. And he holds these workshop sort of things where once a week, it's organised by him, but I think he's employed by the AA of Canada or whatever like that. It's one of the things he does. So he says, do you want to come along to that? And I was probably assuming, well, not really, like, I mean, but he says, no, I'd like you to come along. So we're jumping the car to go to this AA meeting, basically. And on the way there, one of the things I remember him saying to us was, he says, Rob, as we're driving along the car, he says, nobody ever lays a finger on my wife, like, and I might be like, what do you mean? Well, nobody ever tries it on with my wife, like, because that just really, I've done stuff in the past, like, and nobody ever does out like that, like. And I think I've said to him, which for fucking hell, Herb, you're alright, mate. Fucking don't worry about that with me. Like, I'm not that sort of person, Like, you're putting us up and all the rest of it. Don't worry about me, And it wouldn't. Nothing was fucking joking. I knew this Herb. I could sense he was a tough guy, And I wouldn't anyway, I've just met the guy, but I wouldn't do that anyway. It's his wife, So we'll get into the AA meeting, and there's about 50 there, like, maybe it's even more, I mean, it was packed, like, there was like tables. Herb was at the front speaking. I was sort of sat at the back on the table, and there was all these tables, and all around every table there was about 5 people or something. And I sort of sat in the back, and then people's getting up. And actually, you know what? I've just remembered that now. I fucking got up as well. Can you believe that? After 30 years, I've just remembered there. So somebody gets up and they're telling about the hardship and what they've and they read their story. I remember a lass getting up. She'd have been in her 20s and she was very attractive, and then she was telling her story. I mean, our proper hardcore fucking problems, like alcoholic problem stories, And then he said, and now I'd like to introduce a new friend of mine, Rob, from England. He's travelling about. Do you want to come and say a few words, Rob? And I'll have been sitting there going, no, but come on, so I have to. And I think I was just sort of stood there, sort of making excuses, saying, well, I really shouldn't be stood here, I really haven't really got much of a problem. Like, I would like to stop. I must have been saying stuff like for Herb I must have been saying to Herb how I feel like, I've stopped a couple of times drinking alcohol, and I mean, we didn't, on this road movie, I didn't really get that hammered like at all, ever really that much, because it was almost as if I was having a break from the alcohol. But I think that was a lot of that was to do with the fact that I just didn't have the money, or even to begin with. I've got the money, but I don't want to be spending on alcohol because there's more important things I need to have this journey to. Because if you start drinking, your money goes down. It's like a big hole in the bottom of a water bucket. It's gone, right? So that would have stopped that much drinking happening, on most up until that point on the journey. Up until that point, and but I must have been talking about alcohol. I remember Herb sort of saying, like, I'd be saying about binge drinking. I'm no different to everybody's a binge drinker where I come from. And I think he said something like in the car, like, well, is it a problem to you? I says, aye, there's a problem. I just don't like it. I don't like getting drunk. I don't like the hangovers. And and I sort of remember him saying, well, if it's a problem, that's alcoholism. That's an alcoholic. And I'm saying, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I've just got a problem that I don't want to I have a problem with this alcohol. I kind of take me drink and hangovers. And he's saying, well, look, if it's a problem, you're an alcoholic. And I think that's why I've been invited up. And I've got up and I've sort of said that, and then I've come off and people's clapping and all that. Well done, aye. And I said back down. I think I'm just sitting thinking, well, my problems are now nothing compared to what this is proper problems, what these people are getting up talking about. So, that happens. So we're back at Herb's, and a bit more wood carving. Herb's out the house, his wife's out the house. Everybody's out the house. And I remember, I'm not sure I think Herb was there, but I was going up to go into the toilet of the and then the daughter, the older one. I mean, if this was all like in the 1860s and they're all dressed, this is the movie, like, that sort of young, how she would have been dressed and all that, and which was the door of our room was open, and she sort of sat on the floor and she's playing a sort of a battery powered keyboard, and she's looking up at us, and she was beautiful. I'm only 28, like, she's about 17. So, and she's looking up at us, and I'm just thinking, God, she is beautiful. Anyway, I'm gone for a piss. And, I remember thinking obviously I was thinking the way she was looking there, and, the door she just happened to be sort of the door opening and playing a keyboard. And I mean, I wasn't going to do out. I wasn't going to, I mean, I don't want my life to end in the basement of a never to be seen again, in the basement of a council fucking house. So it wasn't going to happen anyway, because I had respect for Herbie, I liked the guy, And, 1717, it's, 1717, isn't it? And, you might think you're old at 28, but, you're not that old, are you? Anyway, so that wasn't going to happen, right? And I noticed, like, the next day, or a couple of days later, she wasn't there. I think I remember saying to Herb, where is she? Like, the name of the daughter. And him saying something like, oh, she's staying at the grandparents. She's not in the house. And I just remember thinking, oh, okay, fair enough. And obviously thinking about it afterwards, I think she's shown interest in this older lad who's come into the house, attractive looking young man, and Herb and the mother and the wife have escorted her out of the house in case she, gets me into trouble. But they've gotten her out the house, and I just remember that, So the sort of around that time, Herb said to us, he says, I want you to, oh, that was it. He says, I want you to meet somebody. I don't know if this was his mother. I don't think it was, but she was an old woman. She was in her late 60s. Like an elder. She was in this house. She had long hair. She was native, obviously. An old Native American woman. And Herb took us around to see her. I think he left me with her while he went out and done something, so I just spent like a couple hours with her talking. Something like that anyway, but I remember us saying, are you Native American? Are you Native? And I'm just like, hey, I'm flattered, like. I says, hey, no. And I says, what makes you think that? She says, well, it's the long hair, because now my hair's getting quite long. Now my hair's long, brown, straight, Native American length hair. She says, well, it's your hair and you've got the high cheekbones. And I thought that was great. I thought that was fucking great. I thought I've made it now, like. And I think there was also I don't know if I got it off this lady, but there was the Native American necklaces, the jewellery and stuff. I don't know if I had a piece of one of them on at the time. I did later on, like. I did get one later on, but anyway, the hair and the cheekbones were enough to pass us off as Native American at that time. And the next step from then was Herb. He says, right, I've got you a job. And I'm like, great, great job. Love jobs, me. So it turns out it's putting up fences. So you got these new built houses around the Calgary area, suburb. And the new built houses are big, because all the houses are big, man. So, what would cost you a fortune in Europe for this size house is probably just, it's just a basic size house for them, but they're big. But they're all made out of wood. It's mostly timber, And so there was all these sort of newly built, people living in them, but they were newly built. And there's this guy in his 60s, he's a white fella, like a John Wayne, right? Originally I think he was originally from Denmark or something like that, but, he sounds Canadian and he's basically a Canadian. And he had this pickup truck, our old banged up pickup truck, and his workmate, who he is second to him, who he employed, was this little black fella, and he was like a Richard Pryor. So you got John Wayne and Richard Pryor, right, and me, because I've been introduced to them. In the back of the pickup truck is like fencing, rules of this, metal fencing with pools, to bang them in. And the job was to go around these new built houses and basically to put fences up, and that's what I started doing. So I'm doing that first week, and then getting to know these two, who they were all right, they were just working blokes, and he was in his 60s as well, the Richard Pryor bloke. And I remember one day he was talking about the John Wayne fella said how the Richard Pryor fella was scared of dogs, and he was telling us how he was scared of dogs, And he says in the other, John Wayne said he stuck a spade. He killed the dog with a spade. And I'm asking the fella Richard Pryor what's all this about, and he says well it was coming towards us, and he's sort of laughing about it. He says, and this is just like people's dogs, in these houses they're going to. You see, he thought the dog was attacking him, so he fucking started hitting it with a spade, and I think he killed it. And it was a little bit of a joke with him, And I remember we were in the back of one of these big houses to put some fencing up, and there was this big dog. It's not a scary dog, not a vicious dog, just a big sort of, pet, long mane on it, in this mesh cage outside the back door. And there wasn't that much room for it in there, I mean, I felt sorry for the dog, But it was a clean, well-kept dog. But it was barking the fuck, And that's obvious, because it's like two strange blokes who just appeared around the back of his space in this back of this big garden. We're going to put fences up. The dog doesn't know that. And he was fucking shitting himself, this little black fella. And he was going to start getting aggressive with the dog, And I says, whoa. So I held my hand out, because, I think it's the British, we know this, it's just the, nation of dog lovers. So I put my hand out and pressed it up, the back of my hand, pressed it up towards the cage. And then the dog sniffed my hand, and then whoosh, it just calmed down instantly. It just chilled, man. Because that's just, the dog was just on fight or flight, Everybody knows that. And then, the Richard Pryor bloke, he's looking at me like I'm the dog whisperer. And he looks at the dog and he's looking at me, and he kind of believe it. And I'm just saying, look, man, it's just fucking scared. That's the only reason it's making a noise, And this fella's brain's working, Has he spent his whole life not working at it? And, I just thought, I was talking about as well, something about where we're from. That's what we're talking about. And the other John Wayne fella saying, well, originally from Denmark. And I'm asking this black fella, says, well, where you originally from, like? And again, he's saying, well, fucking slaves. I says, aye, and all that, but where before then? Fucking hell. Yeah. So that was funny, So, I mean, that was, they were sort of harmless, them two, but they were sort of like, again, just a couple of characters, and just a couple of characters. I'm just checking my notes here. Now, the other big one, this was coming to the end of this sort of section. I goes back, and, Herb is saying there's a big weekend happening this weekend. It's a Native American weekend. We've got all the teepees and we're heading up to, what we do is we go up into the mountains, and we set up the teepees, and we basically live like that for the weekend, basically just a big piss up, and instead of sticking tents up, they stick the teepees up. well, not be a piss up, obviously, with her, but it'll be more of a just you know, where it's the tradition. That's their ancestry. So they'll be going up there and actually, obviously, completely not having a piss up. It'll be completely about looking up the stars and talking and eating and telling stories. And I was thinking, well, fucking hell, that would be amazing, that, like. So I says, yeah, absolutely, sign me up for that, like, I'll be doing that this weekend. Yeah. So, I'm back working with these fellas, and that's what's going to happen this weekend. And what had happened is I came back from the job, and they had left on the Friday, and I was going to catch up with them. Or, no, what it was, Herb wasn't in the house, and I was going to be, but I came back to the house, and there's this sort of smaller guy there in Herb's house. And this is only him in the house. Oh, hello. It turns out this guy he's Herb's younger brother. And he's got sort of shorter hair. And not a big fella. Sort of about my size, maybe he's a little bit smaller. And he says, let's go out in the piss. You've been paid, you've got money on you. I said, he says, I've got a shitload of money as well. And I said, well, where? He said, we'll go into Calgary and we'll have a drink. Let's go and party, man. And I've thought to myself, well, it sounds like a great idea. I'll go and do that. Get back here the night and then go and have this amazing adventure up in the mountains with Herb and the tribe. Yeah, I'm up for that. I'll just go on and get washed and changed, and we'll go on it.